Hey, you are listening to a Bizgazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark.
And I'm your other co-host, Josh, and I'm feeling festive.
Yeah, we got to check out Christmas, Bloody Christmas.
Which you can stream for yourself exclusively on Shudder beginning this Thursday, December 9th. All right, well,
So, do you want to lead off on this one?
yeah, I think we have like differing opinions about this one. But yeah, so this one is for those of you guys that are. Let me pull up his filmography real quick. So this is the latest movie from Joe Begos. If you guys don't know that name, he is the writer director behind the movie Bliss a couple years ago that a lot of people really loved, and then last year VFW, which made its way, both of which are now also streaming on Shudder. But this movie tells the story of a young record store owner named Tori, who is basically she goes to hang out with friends one night, and a
Is
robotic
that what we're calling it? Hanging out?
we'll talk about it in spoilers, but basically she ends up getting hunted by a Santa that should have been recalled. And yeah, so it's a traditional like slasher movie, but let's kind of just let's share some general thoughts, and then we can jump into spoilers.
This is an 80s Christmas slasher wet dream.
Tell me how you really feel.
There, the bad thing is I didn't hate it. It was fun, and it did everything you would expect from an 80s slasher. It had the feeling, it had every aspect of 80s horror that made it what it is. And damn it if it wasn't fun.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely want to say that this movie is fun. This movie first off looks beautiful. I know like I'm more of like the cinema guy here, but the vibrant colors of like Bliss and like the holiday colors of like greens and reds are very present here. Um, this movie looks beautiful. The cinematography is stunning. But I think you hit it right on the nail. Like this film feels like an 80s dream. This film to me feels like if you took the original Silent Night and Deadly Night and mixed it with the
Terminator.
child's I was gonna say Child's Play remake from a few years ago, because it's robotic Santa and it's a slasher, so that's kind of where I put the two together. Um,
I mean,
but yeah,
I can see that. I kind of felt more like Terminator in Santa's clothing, but
I mean,
whatever.
I could definitely see that too. But yeah, this
Potato,
movie's a
potato.
lot. This movie's a lot of fun. Like I have only seen Bliss from him, and I was not the hugest fan of Bliss. I saw it at a festival, didn't initially like it, tried to give it a second chance, but it just wasn't my thing. Um,
Yeah, I think Bliss, I think I got halfway through and it was just not my thing to the point that I turned it off.
yeah, and but I think what the thing that kept me engaged with this one is was the characters. I feel like the characters are written a lot better. I really liked the back and forth between Tori and Robbie. Are like our two main protagonists that we'll talk a little bit more about in here. Well, I mean, we could jump into spoilers if you want to. Um, but yeah, I think for the most part, like this movie is just it's a lot of fun, and this is a movie that I feel like you could play right alongside of like Silent Night, Deadly Nights, and like Black Christmas, and like some of the other like staple movies when it comes to holiday horror.
Yeah, if you don't go in expecting like Halloween or OG Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, if you go in expecting as little as you did from like OG slashers and the campiness and fun that they were, you'll be happy with it. It, it's just it's absolutely ridiculous in every aspect. It's cheesy. It has cheesy kills, and that's what just made it wonderful.
Yeah, there's a lot of schlock in this movie, and I think that's what really helps it to kind of be that way. Like I think you said it perfectly. Like there's a distinct difference between the level of excellency when you're talking about something like Halloween compared to Silent Night, Deadly Night. I like them both for two different reasons. Like I think Halloween is a absolute masterpiece. I think it's a perfect film. Silent Night, Deadly Night, not so much. It's just really cheesy, schlocky horror that happens to have great kills in it and compelling narrative. I'll argue that way, but I think there's a stark difference between the two, and I definitely think that this film definitely goes for the latter.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing is with being a horror fan, there's kind of like two routes they go with it. They either try to go the serious route or we know what we are and we're going to cheese it up the whole time. And they knew what they were going for with this movie and they ran wild with it. And I got to use one of my favorite phrases while watching this movie. When
It's
Santa,
garbage day.
no, when when Santa walks in and they show him getting, I think, one of his first kills. So it's like, oh my God, he just cleaved him in twain. I love that phrase, and it was fitting. Fucking Terminator Santa was awesome.
Well, let's jump into the spoiler section. So we're digging into the
Oh, I thought we already
s-
had.
stockings of spoilers. We have not yet,
Oh,
but this is your official spoiler warning. So make sure that you guys pause this, download this podcast, save it, and come back after you guys have checked it out. Christmas Bloody Christmas, after it's streamed on Shudder beginning December 9th. So I'm just going to start off by saying Santa was probably the worst part of this movie. And I'm not going to say that like Santa as a killer was a bad idea. It was have you ever talked to like with like fans of the Halloween franchise and like they talk about like the shape. Everyone constantly compares like how the actor portraying Michael Myers feels in comparison to Nick Castle, the original guy that played him. Have you ever had those conversations?
no.
Okay. So maybe that's just because I don't know. So Andy and I from Love What I Love did an episode for his podcast where we like went through and like talked about like how every actor played the shape in Michael Myers and how they move. And I think my biggest complaint about the Santa was that he never felt like robotic to me. Uh
I
and I don't know if
think
that was like part of the just the schlock or not, but it turned me off every time. Like I thought that they had great kills, but as a robot killer, it was just it was a man moving slow with robot clinks and gadgets dubbed over top, and I was just like, dear God, why is this so cheesy?
and I feel like that may have been on purpose because they knew what they had on their hands. Like I said, they knew what they were doing and they ran with it. And I think the cheesier they can make it, the better is the way they viewed it. So you've got slow moving Santa with them playing robot sounds every time he moves or does something, just fit for the level of ridiculousness of this movie.
So the actor that plays Santa in this movie is named Benjamin Abraham Ben Ruby, and the guy is 53 years old. He is like he's he looks like a linebacker. Honestly, like just pulling up his IMDb page, like, and I don't know why they didn't just embrace that and just make it like Santa like an escaped mental patient or
Because
somewhere
that had
along
been
that.
done.
It's okay. All right. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, be damned, because that movie is just a rewind of the first film with 10 minutes of new footage. Um, but like, I don't know. Like, I think that that would have made Santa more intimidating, and I definitely think you could have leaned into the camp a whole lot more. He just kind of felt to me like it was like out of tone with the rest of the film.
So, have you seen? I know it's not your favorite franchise, but have you seen Puppet Master Littlest Reich?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's was a really good take on the Puppet Master movies, but that's what this reminded me of with the way they did some of the scenes and the kills and things were done. It reminded me of that to the point that it had enough of that feeling. I wondered if some of the same people were involved. So that might be why I may have liked it a little more than you and could deal with the cheesy Robo Santa because I enjoyed the last Puppet Master movie, but that's just me.
So I think another thing too that like I will also like complain about. I guess initially I would complain about, but I rewatched Child's Play last night, the original one from 1988, and like I'd forgotten how many times like in the last act they try to kill Chucky and he just kind of keeps coming back. And this movie like does the same exact thing to where like Tori like kills Santa and like she's like, all right, I'm in the clear. He keeps coming back. And like I don't like movies. I guess like it's a pet peeve of mine for like movies to establish what feels like an ending and then it's misdirection and there's like 45 minutes left. And this isn't that bad. I mean, there's probably like they probably start doing it around like the 70-minute mark of this movie, if not 65. Uh, but I don't know. How did you kind of feel about Santa constantly like never wanting to die?
That's what I said. I'm pretty sure somewhere they were like, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's have a Killer Santa movie, but he's going to be a Terminator because they did that. They did that in Terminator. They like shot him and blew him up and all kinds of crap, and he just kept coming. And they did that in the second Terminator. They did all kinds of crap, and he just kept coming. And now we can add Santa to the mix. I'm pretty sure Cyberdyne sent back Santa to kill this record shop owner for no apparent reason whatsoever. But we got this movie out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also too like yeah, I don't know. I felt like also like I mentioned this during during like the like the general thoughts, but like man, I think this movie just looks gorgeous. Like I can't get over how like beautiful this looks.
So you were in it more for its looks, for its
I
beauty, than its ridiculousness.
No, I'm here for both. I want to just say that like up front that I think this movie is proof positive that you don't need to that you can look this great and also be a beautiful film and feel like something that's being produced by A24 and exists simultaneously. This movie is an anomaly. Like stuff like this does not happen often.
I mean, it's one of those movies we decided to cover, and I looked at the trailer. It was like, oh God, this is going to be horrible. And I watched it and was like, wow, this is horrible, but it's so fun and ridiculous. So It's exactly what they advertise it to be. I would have expected this to see a commercial for this, like on one of those late night horror shows from the 80s and 90s. I mean, that's how this movie comes across. That's what I would have expected as a kid, watching, what was it, Dr. Demento and stuff like that from the 80s.
Yeah. And I want to like name drop because I believe in giving credit where credit is due. Brian Sowell is the cinematographer on this movie, and I mean his cinematography list is like not very long. Like TV spots, like short films, music videos. He hasn't done a whole lot like in terms of like feature films, but like he had another movie come out this year called The Inhabitants. That a series of supernatural events reveal a dark truth behind a demented teenager, and it happens to be a Lizzie Borden story. And so like I think this movie, like I said, like it really looks really well. And I think kind of having that cinematography also lends to some of the 80s aesthetic that we've been like talking about at what this movie does really well.
I mean, even with the way it's shot, now I don't know. This could have just been the way I streamed it to my TV, because we get, when we get screeners and talk about screeners, it's a link that we get and have to either watch it on a computer or stream it through like Chromecast or something like that, depending
Yeah.
on how our stuff is. So it may have just been my connection and the way it was streaming, but it had that kind of grainy feel of 80s movies too.
Yeah, and I think that again, like it comes. I think it's an effect that Begos tried to do with the, at least that's something that he did with Bliss, to where it has that graininess, and I think it, and also with that feeling, it also lends to this almost timelessness that you feel like with the film as well.
Yeah, you excuse me. Uh it gives you that nostalgia for anyone that was in the 80s, watching some of these super cheesy movies coming out for horror at the time, these straight to video, late night Skinamax horror slashers that they used to release. They were just everything that this movie is essentially. And it seemed like it was a tribute to that time period and era. And you picked one.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in this show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
All right, so I also want to shout out another actor that is in this movie, and that is Jeff Daniel Phillips, who plays the sheriff in this movie. Most people, he's been in nearly every Rob Zombie movie since Halloween 2, and I've never ever seen him do anything else outside of this movie. Outside of Rob Zombie until this movie. So it was really cool to kind of get to see what else he could do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You said he was the sheriff in this movie.
Yeah, so he was Sheriff Monroe. He was the guy that was in the bar when Tori and Robbie were like getting out, and then he like doesn't come in until like the very end.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, I know that guy. I haven't.
Well, I hope so.
I haven't seen him in too much, actually. That may be why I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, dude, like I remember watching it and like just kind of perked up a little bit, and I was like, oh, uh, okay, I wonder how big of a role he's gonna have. And then like he like leaves and like you don't see him for like another hour, and I was like, comes back, and I was like, oh, okay, awesome. And him and the other patrolmen have a like a shootout with Santa Claus that ends in glorious fiery disaster.
That's a sentence you probably never thought you'd end up saying, isn't it? A
I
shootout with
don't.
Santa Claus.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Um,
And
he,
that's like what I was saying earlier. It's just so over the top and obnoxious, and it lives up to every bit of it.
yeah, but I think one of the reasons that I brought up Jeff Daniel Phillips in particular is because the some of the conversation that he has with Tori and Robbie, who are essentially our protagonists that we follow throughout the course of this movie, is that like he's kind of like he talks about how like depressed he gets or like how he doesn't like the holidays, and I feel like this time of year everyone's kind of expected to like conform to like the general consensus that like Christmas does something magical and everyone's going to love everyone. And the reality about that is that that's not a real thing, because like things like child abuse or sexual assault or depression or alcoholism, like all of those things, like they don't abide to that kind of calendar. Like it's not like a biological thing. It's like, oh, Christmas is here, I'm not depressed today, or maybe my partner won't abuse me today, like just stuff like that. And I think that like that was such a very awesome thing to kind of bring in, especially when you're talking about the mental health aspect of this movie.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. The mental health, which that's kind of what all of our programs revolve around, is this movie takes place during Christmas and during the holiday seasons is one of the highest, if not the highest, rate of suicide of the year is during that whole time period. So it's a factor during this kind of thing. Well, not during rampaging robotic Santa, but during the holidays. It's a factor for a lot of people, more than probably want to admit.
Yeah, because I mean, like another thing too, like you have to consider about the holidays is that you're essentially having to not only face like societal like pressure of like gift giving, being cheery, but also at the same time, like there's like this almost like this unspoken like expectation that in the air that you have to feel a certain way, or that like your presence, and like it sounds really weird, like especially like you listen to our show any amount of time, like guys know that like I'm a practicing Christian, and like I something that I take very seriously, but like my wife and I, like we're like we use Christmas as an excuse to visit family, but like I wouldn't necessarily say that like we outright celebrate it, and it's because of like the mental health aspects of like being an adult, and like having bills to pay, but like also like kind of like feeling like you're freaking out for like the last like quarter of the year because like what am I going to get little Susie, or like what gift am I going to be able to get my dad this year, or just little things like that. And so like it's one of the things that like we made a decision to like put our mental health first, and like kind of really embrace the reason for the season being family, and not necessarily like the gifts that we could like potentially give, and like losing our minds in the process of finding the perfect gift.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Christmas at all. And it's mainly for the fact that it's become so ingrained that you have to go in debt to make people know that you care. Like it's I from a parent's point of view, that it's like there were Christmases where we didn't have a lot of money. We bought the best we could to give presents to the kids, but it was always kind of, are they going to like it because it's not the biggest and best thing that the other kids are going to get? Are they going to get picked on at school for some of the presents because we couldn't afford whatever the hot toy was or hot game or whatever? And it was always kind of a worry. And I mean, it even still is. And you watch TV now, and every Christmas commercial is, buy your wife jewelry. How come you didn't buy a car to tell them you love them? Buy this game, buy these toys. And it's no longer what it used to be about being with family and things like that. It's how much are you going to spend on everybody now? And it puts that pressure on your bank account.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm like approaching the subject of Christmas like the Grinch. But I feel like the older I get, the more I identify with the Grinch, and like I understand like why he doesn't like the holidays.
I
And
mean, I've
again,
I've been called a Scrooge on a fairly yearly occasion, and I'm okay with it. I mean, I
like
I really used to enjoy getting people gifts and things like that, but it turned into, as the years went on, it was just more and more pressure, and then having to buy for the kids. And don't get me wrong, I like giving the kids the Christmas presents and seeing them happy about some of the stuff they get. But at the same time, it's, if you can't afford what the new popular thing is, you end up being the cause of them getting picked on or embarrassment because you didn't buy them what the popular thing was that all the other kids are getting.
yeah, that's definitely like, and I'm not speaking to this as a parent, like, but from someone that grew up in the early 2000s and like the height of like when PlayStation 2s were coming out, and like the first generation Xbox, and like Nike Air Forces were a big thing, and like that's what like all of my friends had like growing up. And so it was like, oh well, why didn't you get like this gaming system or that gaming system? And it's because like my parents like knew that like they got me a first generation PlayStation, and my sister and I played it maybe 3 times a year. And so from their perspective is, why would I spend hundreds of dollars on an upgraded model for a toy that you don't even play with? And so like I also like understand it from like that point of view. And like I experience bullying and kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I definitely get it from like the kids aspect of it. But like even like being an adult, like I don't necessarily want a day set in stone to dictate like when I can give a friend a gift or like show them that I appreciate them, because like honestly, like if I see something at like a con that makes me think about like my wife, I'm just gonna get it for her. If I see something at the store that reminds me of someone like Mark or my buddy Brandon, like I'm going to pick it up for them and just send it to them, or deliver it to them when I see them next time, and just say, hey, I saw this, thought of you, here you go. You just an extra thing to like, you just say, hey, like I appreciate you being in my life.
Yeah, and one of the things that's kind of a weird quirk for me, I guess, is I'll pick something out for somebody and then it turns into, now am I picking this out for them because I think they'd like it or because I think it's cool? Becomes kind of almost like a inner debate when getting gifts now.
Yeah, and man, like I remember like getting gifts as a kid and like giving it to people, like it was so easy because you didn't have like all of this like back and forth like anxiety about it and stuff like that. And like nowadays, like you're right, like I think you talked about it perfectly. Like there comes this like untalked about like hush hush anxiety with Christmas. And it sucks. Like, I don't want to feel anxious to like have to get my sister a gift. Like again, if I see something, I'm going to give it for her.
Yeah, and I also kind of firmly believe that people that love Christmas never worked retail, or
Yeah,
if they did,
retail
or if they did, it
Christmas
was
at retail is the worst.
if they did, it was long enough ago that they forgot, or it was during a time when people didn't treat you like shit at Christmas because I have an expired coupon and I want this anyways. Um, People really treat uh, retail workers like garbage during the holidays. They really do. And every year you get to see videos of Black Friday sales where, I mean, I started joking about it being Death Toll Monday, where you'd end up hearing in the news people getting killed over a doorbuster deal on a TV that was marked up to full MSRP and then reduced by 20% for a doorbuster to sell it for the normal price and make people think it's on sale. And people are getting killed over it. Kids getting punched in the face by adults to buy the newest toy for their kid. And and the little kid has it in his hand. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous and obscene.
Yeah, and I think that as a kid, like you don't like you just kind of see Christmas as this like big magical thing, and like then once you kind of get into like working, like whether that's retail or like even food, I will say is like also like equally as vulgar and
It can be.
cutthroat at the holidays, dealing with customers. Like you have all of that stuff. And then on top of that, you are also dealing with, just different. You're also dealing with like social pressures, and I think that like just all of that mixture together is like the reason why we like there is like that seasonal depression that you see every winter, and the reason why um you know the reason why there also is a potential spike in suicides as well.
Yeah, it's so much, like you said, societal pressure from almost every aspect. And then you add in the stuff people may be dealing with throughout the entire year on top of that. It kind of turns into, no wonder this is really, when you look at it, one of the most depressing times of the year.
And there's another moment in this movie that I want to harken on. It's like to kind of expand the whole conversation about mental health. There's a moment where Tori goes into the bathroom at the police station, and it is after she has seen Santa kill Robbie, who's a friend of hers, and on top of that, like it's just killed her brother and sister. And she just kind of looks at in this mirror, and this is the first time that she's having this like realization that like she's just covered head to toe in blood, and like she kind of just slowly freaks out. And like to me, I feel like that's such a good depiction of how we handle mental health as a society, to where we don't actually like acknowledge it until we see it physically. And I think part of that comes a little bit more at the holidays, to where like it's you want to give the best gift for the holiday, like be transparent with people about what the holidays do to you. If you don't like them, speak up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is one of those holidays where if you don't like them and you speak up, you kind of get harassed about it.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I mean, I take it in good fun from my friends because that's all they're doing. It's just joking and having fun. But I'm just overall, I'm not a big fan. And I pretty much told you exactly why. I mean, I only like my wife's daughter absolutely loves Christmas. Like she's starting to sing Christmas carols before Thanksgiving and trying to put up lights. She's one of those people that will watch multiple Christmas movies a day up until the new year because that's how she is. And is known to listen to Christmas carols throughout the year. And I'm the complete polar opposite. I mean, I like three Christmas movies, maybe four, and that's it. So it's just been from years of just seeing it kind of almost go downhill.
I'm not quite there yet when it comes to Christmas. I definitely think that like I don't get as excited, but I also feel like that just kind of comes with age. When you realize, oh, Christmas is just another day. I mean, it's special because I don't have to go to work. But for the most part, like Christmas just kind of feels like an ordinary day, honestly. And I don't know, like there are definitely like movies that like I'll look forward to watching this time of year, whether that's like Elf,
Oh
or
God.
Black Christmas. We all know how much Mark loves uh, uh Will
Will
Ferrell.
Ferrell. Now, see,
Um,
I would take Christmas Vacation and A Christmas Story and Die Hard.
mm, Die Hard, yes, give it to me. But I think this year it's really hard for a lot of people, and I guess one of the things that we want to end with is like just to like verify it, like and let you know that you are seen and that you are heard and that you are not alone. So don't like beat yourself up, and if you need to, there are mental health resources in the show notes below, wherever you guys are currently streaming this. And it's just a reminder that, again, this is the reason we create this content. So, Mark, let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale. What does Christmas Bloody Christmas get from you?
Oh God, was it horrible, but in a good way. I would give it a 3.5.
Oh man, I definitely thought you would have just stuck it at 3. Because that's where I'm landing at with this one. I think this movie, again, I guess movie does a lot of cool things. I think this movie, it feels like a throwback to the '80s slasher boom. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you really thought I was going to go with a 3?
I did,
I
but
told
yeah,
you
here
it
we are.
was. Yeah, I told you that it was a lot of fun and all its cheesiness.
Yeah, well, you guys can decide for yourself when it hits Shutter on December 9th. Mark, where can people find you online?
I mean, I'm still a titanium juggernaut painting on Instagram if I ever manage to get it updated.
Yeah,
Sorry.
big ifs. Uh, you guys can follow me. I'm on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. You guys can follow me on um, TikTok. I'm at GentGhostFace, GENT. And of course, you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and of course, wherever you guys get your podcast from. And most importantly, make sure that you guys follow and subscribe to us wherever you guys get your podcast from, because we're on our own feed now at Abyss Gazing. But until next time, remember the more you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.